Fantasy finale. It all comes down to this week. Are you playing for a Fantasy MLR championship? The Fantasy Ruckers boys are, and we can't not wait. Congrats to all who made the MLR Fantasy Final. And now we find out who is going to be crowned championship. We break down all of what you need to know heading into the championship weekend, plus much more. The Fantasy Rucker Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 156 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. With you each and every single week, I am Ryan Yee. With me this week, Devin Vanderpool, Matt Yee, scared away. You don't know.
What happens when you get smoked in the semis?
That's right. Fantasy MLR playoffs in full swing. Just ended in round 15 of Major League Rugby. Had our Fantasy MLR semifinals. Some interesting matchups, and that may be the reason why Maddie not here on this show this week. Not that he has a cold. What he tells Vandy. He texted us in the group chat and said,
"Tummy hurts or something."
They feel a little bit of sicky, maybe sicky of losing because
Sick,
Vandy
having to deal with me for the next hour.
Yeah, no kidding. But hey, Vandy, congratulations, man. And if you had been following along, for all you listening out there, Vandy was super pumped up a couple weeks ago to be clinching playoffs, and now goes all the way, is going to meet yours truly here, me, in the semi or in the finals of the Listener League. Got to feel pretty good, eh, Vandy?
It's these guys. It's all these guys, baby. Boom!
For the first time this season, Vandy wearing his Utah Warriors decked
out
kit.
It's freezing in my basement, boys.
Either way, it is the power of Utah Warriors that have got Vandy there. His squad, what is it, Vandy? Half of your team is Utah Warriors?
5 out of 15.
So I decided to join in on the fun. Decked out in every single possible thing MLR that I can find in my house. I got Old Glory DC. We'll talk about that. They're relevant with the news and notes. Got my Dallas Jackals scarf here that pays homage to the team that no longer exists. And then, of course, my MLR polo here because we're super stoked and we're amped up here in the midst of Fantasy MLR playoffs, which we are going to break down on this episode 156, as always. Jam-packed show. We're going to talk about the latest news and notes from around the league. Got a little bit of update for the Fantasy Ruckers League members. Of course, break down the exciting round 15 that we had that led to Vandy's big-time win to get into the final, plus a lot of other people's wins, including the Fantasy Ruckers team, who's in the final with facing the defending champ, John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. So we're going to have a shot at being able to redeem and reclaim and stake the flag in who is the experts of Fantasy MLR. Because, Vandy, it is a thing here where it does look good on our resume, the fact that we started this thing, we do this show, we're 156 episodes into this thing, and pretty good turnout for the TFR boys. So I feel like it kind of adds to the credibility a little bit that we know what we're doing, right? For the most part, I think.
We're really good at faking it until we make it, baby.
Right. And this year, it's been faking it. This year, it's the making it part. So it feels pretty good. But either way, again, we'll talk about the round 15. We'll, of course, in a very important waiver wire, talk about some guys that you got to look out for, break down the round 16 that is to come, and then talk a little bit about betting across league, because I think somebody is making a little bit of headwind here to close that gap that Vandy thought he was so comfortable.
Half a point more.
All right. Well, let's get into it. But before we do, like we say every episode, if you aren't already, follow at the Fantasy Ruckers. Handles up above if you're watching on the YouTube video, down below in the description if you're listening on the pod. Any social media channel, X, Instagram, Facebook, we're there. And you can get some cool updates, content about Fantasy MLR that keeps you in the know with everything going on. Like, subscribe, hit that bell on the YouTube channel, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, help support the show, and we really do appreciate it. Check out the Discord community, fun bunch of people over there. Link to join that is down below as well. And of course, check out the fantasyruckers.com, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers show. All right, let's get right into this one.
News dump.
All right, it is time for our TFR news dump. And when we are in the full swing of things, not necessarily the most amount of news at this time of the year outside of the action that is being played on the weekends. We are what, Vandy? I think 3 weeks left or 2 weeks left in the MLR regular season before we move on to playoffs here. So obviously teams don't really have much to announce outside of how they're playing on the field. But something we don't like to talk about on this show are some big time injuries that have happened over the course of the handful of weeks, and we're just getting a little bit caught up in those. So there was some inklings in terms of some injuries that have happened to Houston Sabercats Seth Smith. Davey Kutzer is just continuing to deal with some injury as well. Houston is technically from fantasy sense on bye this week, so from a fantasy sense not going to impact championships that much, but either way for the stretch here as we continue to watch MLR, especially during playoff time, because obviously Houston is sitting pretty there in the Western Conference. Those two are going to be someone that you'll need to look out for. The big one though is Eric Storty. Despite Anthem Rugby Carolina not being in the playoffs and having been the first team that what's the opposite of clinching playoffs, like officially being eliminated, that was your Anthem Rugby Carolina guys. And Eric Storty, the former first overall pick in 2024, ends his rookie season by being listed as out for the rest of the year due to a hand injury. He'll focus on the upcoming USA Rugby International test now, but either way, Eric Storty is officially out for the year. So if you did have him or relying on him, I know he's tapered off a little bit from a fantasy sense at least, you can go ahead and drop him if you do need the IR spot. A couple things from a team sense from around the league. We have more clinchings as we tail in here to the regular end of the regular season. Two Eastern Conference teams clinching playoffs: the Chicago Hounds and Old Glory DC clinching playoffs here to lock up the 1, 2, and 3 spots. Now, that means there are one spot left between three teams: the Miami Sharks, NOLA Gold, Anthem obviously not playing it. So with Miami sitting at 37 points in the standings, NOLA at 31 points. It's going to be a race to the finish here for that last Eastern Conference team, with now Chicago and Old Glory DC locking up those spots. So very interesting there. The Western Conference is even tighter, which we are going to get to here in a little bit. But hey, congrats to Old Glory DC and the Chicago Hounds for locking up those spots. Hey, Vandy.
Yes, sir. And how
There you
about
go.
Utah tying for first, baby?
Tying for first. Obviously, you got to toss that in there as well. Lastly, a couple pieces of news. The MLRPA obviously has been making waves in terms of growing and representing MLR players. Of course, they had a big stake in terms of with all the teams that were leaving the league, them stepping in to try to make sure that player welfare was kept in mind. Of course, when the schedule release came out this year, the MLRPA releasing official announcements about the impact it'll have on players, so really being that body that represents the MLR players. So interesting enough, they have actually become a full member of the International Rugby Players Association. So a big step up here for a governing body for the MLR that has been growing over the years. Obviously, a vital part of any professional sports league to have that player representation. And now they kind of put the stamp of approval and being even more kind of solidified here as they join the International Rugby Players Association, which is very good, both the MLRPA and the USRPA. All right, let's get right into now a little bit of an update for our league members.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yee with a Fantasy Ruckers Leagues update. This might be another reason, Vandy, why Maddie decided to not appear on the show.
Yep.
Because he's been all talk when it comes to the weekly challenge. He is still sitting first on the season, but I think for the first time this year, ends up finishing outside of the top five, at least in the past couple weeks, maybe, but at least the first time this season where he's finished last between us three. Vandy finishing fifth at 34.5. I was just ahead of you at 39.7, sitting in that third place spot. And the fantasy Ruckers, I don't know if you can maybe take this as a pseudo win for all of us, but the fantasy Ruckers was 62.1 points, the official, I guess, weekly challenge roster for us here, winning first. Shout out to Hawks 58, who fell short by just point 8 points as our community member to win this week's round 15 weekly challenge. So fun stuff there. But again, weekly challenge has been a lot of fun. So if you're out of your league's playoffs, it's been fun to at least have this to look forward to each and every week, because each week is a brand new start, which is always a good thing, because Fantasy MLR every single week definitely does not go your way. But with weekly challenge, you can start fresh each and every week. It is finals time. We're stoked for it. The championship finals are this week. You'll have your bronze medal matches as well. Toilet bowl finals happening along with that. So hey, make sure you are doing your due diligence here to get prepared for this week's matches, the most important matchup of the year for those finalists. Congratulations to all of our finalists. We'll give a little bit of a shout out to them on making the final. If it's your first time making the final, I know we've had a whole bunch of leagues that have joined. Congratulations. And hey, if you didn't make your final, Vandy can tell you the best. There's always next year, because Vandy has been trying for this thing for the past like 4 or 5 years, and this is the first year he's finally made the final. I guess how does it feel, Vandy, to make the final? It's one thing to make playoffs, but in your first playoff appearance, to get all the way to the final here.
How does it feel? It's like electricity running through your veins. Like you just wanna hop up and boom, baby, baby. That's what it makes
Uh,
me. Boom, boom, boom. A little bit of that.
um,
Do a little
th-
bit of
th-
that.
th- this is why we play fantasy, right? Like that. This is the feeling. Like
That right there.
for all
Boom,
the
boom.
years, of pain that fantasy
Oh,
provides, right? This is the sweet feeling that makes it worth every single time. Because believe us, there's definitely many more years of pain than there are years that you
oh.
get to feel this. But the pain may not be over yet, Vanny. You got to get through me. You got to get through me, and that's a tall task.
Just bet your line up for me, bud. Come on. Come on. You want me fist
Hey,
bumps? I'll be
I'm in
hitting
it.
next
I'm in
week.
it too, man.
Oh, oh.
I think I got knocked out in the first round last year in our fantasy playoffs. This is my first final, so
No, I'm trying to go
I'm
1 for 1. One playoff, one win, and I might not make a playoff again. We don't know.
yeah. And then you'll ride in the sunset. We'll never hear from you again.
I'll buy a Harley and I'll send you guys a video. You'll be like, where's
Yeah,
he been?
there
And it'll
you
just be
go.
me riding the sun.
As part of that, as part of it being an important week, though, I will remind players and league members as well that there are a whole bunch of position eligibility changes. I know a lot of people took advantage of OJ Noah having that second row eligibility this past week. Thomas Beckerman, another example, who has been starting at the back row position despite expected being listed as a prop in a lot of areas. Including Peyton Wall, who's been a center, at least coming into the season, is now back three eligible. Just keep an eye on that. Definitely going to make a difference here in your roster construction, who is available and who is not available in terms of coming up this week. All right, Vandy, let's get right to it. No time to waste. Let's talk about this exciting round 15 that happened over the course of the past weekend.
Quick tap recap.
All right, time for our round 15 quick tap recap here on the Fantasy Ruckers Show. On bye, the San Diego Legion had somewhat of a normal week this week, which was nice because we've had appearances from future Ryan over the past the course episodes. Glad we don't get to see him anymore, because
Yeah, I'm sick of
that guy was starting to get on my nerves. A little bit of a smart ass in terms of the
guy
things
acts
that
like he's a know-it-all or something.
I know, it's ridiculous. So this week, matches started on Friday, ended on Sunday. And we will go in terms of the first match here that happened over the course of the weekend, a one that kind of explains to you the tightness of the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm.
The Seattle Seawolves and Houston Sabercats opening it up on Friday with what was a quite physical match and a defensive battle between two teams, and it ended up being the team who could get past that try line was going to win this match. Houston 9 points, all from the boot, but couldn't get past Seattle's 14 points in this one. They win at 14-9. Seattle now on a quite a bit of a tear, as we were concerned with how Seattle was playing at the start of the season. But I got to pull this up here in terms of how many matches they've won in a row now. But they have been doing well. They find themselves now in um
in the West.
fourth in the Western Conference now
Three-way tie
at
though.
7-1-6. Uh, I would say in terms of standings, but 42 points for Seattle, 45 for RFCLA. San Diego's right behind at 41. Seattle has now won one, two, three,
Tied.
three of their last three matches and tied against RFCLA. Pretty solid for Seattle so far, and
Pretty
now they've kind of
solid.
clawed their way back up to fourth place here. Again, from a fantasy sense, not what you love to see, and I know a lot of people had guys in their lineup with the notion of Duncan Matthews doing well, with Devon Rousseau doing well, solid, but definitely not a matchup that was going to blow the doors off and win you next year matchup. Vandy, when you have a fantasy playoff match, whether it's football, whatever have you, in this case, MLR, when you have like, let's say a Thursday night matchup or Friday night matchup and you open up expecting, some big boy points. For me personally, I hate having these early matchups, especially when you know that's going to get locked in early. It feels great. It's like a double-edged sword. It feels great if you have a guy that pops off and you're like, oh, I'm walking into the weekend with a guy that has 20 points. This is going to be great. Or the other way around, for example, for guys that had OJ Noah in their lineup who
Yeah.
thought that was a swing and you got 5.4 points out of him, expecting maybe a double digit performance. You're like, damn, this is going to be a tough
Well,
one
you know
coming back.
what? It's funny that you say the double-edged sword because you know what? I fell on the right, I guess the right side of that sword because Maddie had Matthews, Rousseau, and I think Iona. And I came out of there with Rufus McLean. I was like, oh, baby.
Yeah. And what a play by you, man. Rufus McLean, not a guy that is necessarily on people's radars to start this week.
Hey,
But
that's why
hey,
you watch the show.
exactly. That's exactly. So let's get right into there with in terms of fantasy point performance. And we'll talk about Rufus McLean there. 19.8
Eater,
fantasy points
eater,
for him.
baby.
Doesn't even need the try scored in. I love the reaction in our Discord community, Vandy, when they were like, damn, Rufus McLean 19.8 didn't even need a try. And everyone was just like exactly what you were saying. Meter eater, 135 meters gain. I had 6 tackles and 2 forced turnovers. What a way to start the week. Definitely felt pretty good there, Vandy,
Oh, yeah.
to have him going. Other Houston guys, AJ Alatimu,
Good pickup.
11 fantasy points, solid from the boot. I mean, when you have, at least from a fantasy sense, you see 9 points on the board and you have the guy that's kicking all those 9 points, definitely great. AJ Alatimu with the 3 penalty kicks gets 11 points with the 18 meters gain that he tacked on with that. And again, when you're only scoring 9 points without any tries, you're not going to have many other point scores outside of that. So flipping all over to the Seattle side of things, Duncan Matthews continues to be as consistent as it comes.
Mhm.
In the past, I mean, he has scored double-digit fantasy point performance except for one time, all the way dating back into round 5. And he had a little bit of a break between round 6 and round 10, but I mean 11.8 this past week, 17.4 the week before, 9.7, so point 0.3 shy of double digits, 14, 18.2, 25.2, 12.7, 10.4, and 14. I mean, just incredible. And he's had at least 60 meters gained in every single one of those matches. You take out that game that he had 9.7, he has gone at least fit around the 60-meter mark every single time. So pretty great. 4 tries on the season. Didn't score a try in this one, but the 76 meters gained, 4 tackles, and the forced turnover was enough for him to get into that double-digit mark. Nick Boyer, man, he's been a scrum half savior for a
Yeah.
lot of people because he's a guy that has come in with the injury problems that Seattle's having. Obviously, something's up with JP Smith. Not sure what. It's been since I think that game match that he got subbed out, where Brock Gallagher then came in, and then Brock Gallagher got subbed out.
Yeah.
We have seen Brock coming off the bench, but I think this just speaks to Boyer and his capabilities and the trust that the franchise has in him to sign him off of free agency, get him into the lineup, and has basically gone with him ever since. Has his best game of the year, 10.7 for his first try of the season, 21 meters gained, 7 tackles. When you get a 10.7 fantasy point performance, which I did in the listener league,
Ooh.
you're sitting happy there when you
You know
have
what? When you could pick up a starting nine at this, I guess he started what the last 3 weeks. But when
mhm,
you get a starting nine putting up like 10 points for a nine, it's huge, man.
yeah,
If you're getting
yeah.
that in fantasy playoffs on a late pickup, beauty.
And even in addition to that, like Nick is a guy, Boyer is a player that he looks to attack. And when you find those nines that can do that, you don't get that halfway through the season. And typically nines are not getting 63 meters gained in the past three matches. So he's been very, very effective in terms of fantasy point production for you from that nine position, especially again when you're able to pick him up
Hmm.
3 weeks ago there when he first played for the
Yep.
team. And then we'll round out with Tony Pulu, with the 46-meter gains and seven tackles, was able to get 10.7. And then Devon Rousseau, again, when you talk about consistency, you can throw
Oh,
Devon Rousseau in that lineup as well. He continues to be the number one fantasy point producer of the year. I imagine he's going to end that way at 176 fantasy points right now. He leads Jonah Moe at 161.8 by more than 16 or by around 15 fantasy points. Devon Rousseau has been fantastic for fantasy managers, and again, consistency is key, and he's been just that along with Duncan Matthews. So 56 meters gained for him, 10 tackles, a forced turnover, 80 minutes played, 10.6, which led to a Seattle win. 14-9. All right, let's move on to the next matchup there. The first one on Saturday. And I don't know what it is about Old Glory DC versus the New England Free Jacks, but they always play close, always. And I don't know what it is particularly about Old Glory DC when it comes to them facing the New England Free Jacks, but they show up every single time. And that happened this past weekend. Old Glory DC comes away with a 20-17 victory. Just a back and forth affair between these two squads, the red, white, and blue game. Yeah, I mean, these ones are always fun to watch. This is one that you always have marked on your calendar. Our website guru, Alistair Kirsch-Poole, had a great write-up that he posted about this New England Free Jacks Old Glory DC stuff. But hey, kudos to Old Glory DC for stepping up
yep.
again here and getting the 20-17 victory.
You know what? Just kind of, in a sense, kind of held on just a little bit. New England was pressing there. They got that yellow. Balacana scored, but OG didn't seem to waver. I thought they looked really good. Just solid play out of them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, what's talk about teams that have been hot. You throw with the Seattle Seawolves, or Old Glory DC has been just that as well. And I mean, I know, and I'll say it first. We had our doubts about Old Glory DC in large part due to the lack of maybe movement that they've had, but they've now won four matches in a row. And what a month of May that they've had here. They beat Utah, they beat
Hey,
NOLA, they take care of Anthem, and then now New England. I mean, or DC, they are getting hot at the right time. And having watched and followed this league for as long as we have, Andy, we know that that's a large part of it. If you can get hot at the right time,
yep,
especially with four out of the six teams in the conferences making this into playoffs, all you need to do is buy your ticket. And once you buy your ticket, anything can happen in playoffs. So
yep.
Old
But
Glory
you know
DC
what?
doing
One
everything
thing I
they can.
wanted to add too, they brought it up I think twice during the stream, but New England with those with the high balls, they kept saying you could see where they've been missing Reese McDonald.
Mm,
It really got me thinking. And that guy, the way he flew through the air, fearless and everything,
yeah.
obviously if you had Potros, then it would have been a different game regardless. But I think, it shows that team last year, they're missing that piece, that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one more that made them scary.
It's true. It's true. And Reese McDonald,
Because
we know when Reese Lightning's in the lineup, what he can do.
yeah,
And Brock Webster out in that 15 just doesn't have that same
well,
impact
and like
that Reese Lightning.
Leroux Milan, he was playing great. Balacana was doing well. Like even
Hmm.
Dan Hollins had played fine. It's just, it does seem a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk about let's talk about some of these New England fantasy point performers because in a 20-17 match, there was actually quite a few. You mentioned him, Vandy, Paula Balacana. Like I don't know what he did round 10 on. What
Cool.
he changed in his training regimen, what he decided to do, but this guy's just been on a tear for the past 5 weeks. If you were able to scoop him up, because he was in large part available on a lot of waiver
Yep.
wires, he was on our waiver wire segment a handful of weeks ago. Like this guy could be a league winner. He has scored 6 tries in the past 5 matches. In this one, 19.2 fantasy points, 120 meters gained for his second highest of the year. A try scored as well on top of 4 tackles and a forced turnover. He's now has 4 tries in the past 3 matches.
Hmm.
Just electric, man. Just electric. And I know we talk about the volatility of the back three player, and if they're not finding the try zone, then it's hard to. They have a high ceiling and a low floor, and Balikana seems to be Spider-Man on top of the ceiling. Just he's not coming down. He's not
No.
coming down in the foreseeable future right now. And right now, it's lock him in your lineup plan. Um, in our fantasy Ruckers league, it made me quite happy when I saw that. We faced a team, Nick Johnson, our analytics guru in the semifinal, and he had Balikana on the bench. Almost feels as good as starting a guy. I know it's
Yeah.
at the detriment, almost it comes at the detriment of another person, and I hate to. That's why we're here. We're here to help you and
We're
make the
not
right
rubbing it
fantasy
in, but a little
decisions.
bit, a little bit.
It felt not too bad, but salt in the wound for sure. Jed Melvin, 16.7 for him. He's been fantastic.
Dude, that
Um,
guy's unreal,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. And I mean, good. And I think the guy that I want to talk about, Leroux Milan, he was very solid in this one,
Very
especially with the
good.
pops from the deck,
Yep.
that he helped out on 2 of the
Two
tries.
tries, yep.
11.9 for him. And then Vian Conradi, 15.4. He seems to be in that form of what Vian Conradi was expected to be, a little while ago before suffering injury last year. 35 meters gained, try scored in this one. He has now 3 tries in 2 matches, 4 tries in the last 4 matches, 18 tackles in this one. 3 of the past 4 matches he's had at least double-digit tackles. So I mean, just electric. On the season, he's only been outside the double-digit tackle mark 3 times. So just a workhorse for Vian Conradi. Yeah, I mentioned Lure Milan with the 2 try assists, and then Jed Melvin to circle back. The try scored, obviously great, 63 meters gain, pretty fantastic. On the Old Glory DC side of things, Axel Muller, good to see him kind of back in the point column.
Yep.
He scores his second highest of the season, 16.8 fantasy points for him. His back-to-back games where he has scored tries, obviously dealing with injury between rounds 11 and 13. And when this guy's in the lineup, like he's going to produce for you, right? Like he's pretty solid. Again, in round 10, he got injured, I think early on, got subbed out to 14 minutes, but this guy plays the full 80. And when he plays the full 80, he is more than likely than not, again, a really volatile guy, but back-to-back weeks now with double-digit point performances with those 2 tries,
Yep.
pretty solid from Axel Muller. And then the last guy, Corey Daniel, tackle machine, 16 tackles in this one, 24 meters gained. That baseline is just so nice for a back row player when you know that he's going to get at least 15 tackles in. And Corey Daniel's that guy. He's now gotten double-digit tackles in the past 5 matches.
Yep.
I'm just looking at these tackle numbers. It's insane.
Dude,
He's passed 20 tackles twice this year, and he's been at 19, at least 19 4 times.
how
Like,
do you get 20 average 20 tackles a game and play all 80 minutes? It's
yeah,
absolutely insane, man.
yeah. So
I just want to
again,
shout out one more guy, Connor Buckley. Played
mm,
him for a scrum half pickup because Bertranu unfortunately got suspended. But
yeah,
you know what? What a play. That guy, you know what? He looked good. He played really good last week. Got lucky on the pickup. Yeah, you fit that hat a little bit better. Because you know what? Man deserves it. Thank you,
yeah.
Buckley. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, he now has tries in back-to-back games, and me and Maddie know this best out of anyone because we played 9. Sometimes with the 9 position, it's just about being at the right place at the right time. You follow the ball.
He sure was.
Sometimes you're going to get it popped up to you, and sometimes you're going to have a free lane to score a try. And those tries often feel the best. Connor Buckley taking advantage of
Just
this
had to
one
give him a shout
here.
out. Thank you, Buckley.
There you go. Always, you get a little soft spot in your heart when those guys pull through for you, for
You know
sure.
what
All
you
right,
do?
let's move on to now the next matchup on the Saturday, same time. Vandy, we'll start with this one. Utah Warriors, NOLA Gold. Utah, fast start, go up early.
Hmm.
And then
And then what
after the
happens?
first half, what typical Utah? Is that
Yep.
what we're calling it now? They're able to hold off the NOLA Gold though, 31-28. Lots of fantasy point scores from this one. But before we get into those, Vandy, since you're an in-house Utah Warriors fan, with the win, you're now tied at the top of the Western Conference here with Houston Sabercats. How's it feel? And what were your thoughts of the game?
You know what? Honestly, it felt okay. It felt a little selfish when Lahore scores, Coltman scored, and then Hodgson scored all in the first half. And then I was like,
Yeah.
I had a moment to myself where I was loving life, and
Yeah.
I said it out loud. I went, you know what? Even if we don't win, the points that these boys have got me, I was shedding a tear at half. Now, as you said, typical, Utah Warriors. I like to say we play the style of defense. It's called bend, don't break. We made some great plays. Even our second try came off really good defense. Boom, you find a lane. Obviously Jordan Trainer, he was out this game, but Nolan Tumialoa, good enough.
Taumohialoa. We'll say that.
Tamahulia, he looked unbelievable, man.
Hmm.
He was
Hmm.
finding lanes all over the field, perfect fit in. Kind of looked like Trainer, just a little bit slower though. I mean, I can't say much. I'm not fast myself. But you know what? Honestly, a great game. Love to see if Phil Bradford clean up the lineouts a bit. That was getting a little tough. Um, but honestly, I was more surprised with there being no more points after I think the 55th minute.
Yeah.
Like with
Yeah.
that kind of game going on, I was expecting, I don't know,
Yeah.
bloodbath, but could have used one more point there. It would have been great for the betting purposes, but all in all, great
Yeah.
game.
Talk
Got the
about bad
win,
beats.
got fantasy points. Can't be happy.
It's not often, Vandy, I guess to
Road
put
Warriors,
it,
baby.
is
Road
it's
Warriors.
it's not often that it is crazy how Utah
Road
just
Warriors.
finds a way to win on the road.
Hmm.
But it's not often where the stars align from both a fan purpose
Hmm.
and a fantasy purpose. Maybe you get
Hmm.
a little bit greedy there to say that it works from a betting purpose as well. The 0.5 point spread, what is it? -3.5 favorites there end up winning by just three. So a bad beat there. But at least from a fantasy sense and the Utah Warriors
Hey,
fan in you, Vandy, you got to love it, especially when you have a
gotta
bunch of
love it.
Utah guys on your lineup. So we'll get into one guy. I will say we hit both me and Maddie. This is the one time I'll give Maddie some credit this week. We hit on our starts of the week, and Nolan Taumohiloa is a guy that I had on, I believe, on my start of the week. 25.1 fantasy points for our top point scorer this
Monster.
week. Looked great. We'll talk about more about him in the waiver wire segment, but he was solid for the Utah Warriors. Joel Hodgson, obviously having full-time kicking duties with D'Angelo Leila out of the lineup. 14.8 fantasy points for him.
Looked
Pretty
great.
solid stuff. He now has three straight matches where he has scored a try, which is something from the fly half position you'd love to see because that's just bonus points on top of the kicking stuff, which is great. Dylan Nell, 11 tackles, 23 meters gained, a try scored. He gets into the 13.1 point range. And then lastly, Zion going,
Dude, his
12.6
best
fantasy
game
points.
of the year.
Yeah.
He played
And you
so
match that with, I
well.
believe, his third highest fantasy point performance this year. 48 meters gained ties his season high for meters gained. Plus the try assist and the six tackles. Zion going looked pretty solid as well. I'll mention Frank Lahore, Matt Vandy, because you have a soft spot for him. He gets 10.5. Definitely advantageous at the second row with the try that he scored. From the NOLA Gold side, Jonah Moe.
Dude,
Jonah
I was a
Moe.
little disappointed with his hit.
Yes.
Came in a little high, a little aggressive, only got a
Even
yellow.
with the yellow card, though, gets 15.9 fantasy points.
Yeah,
Right?
he
Two
was
tries,
all over the
his
pitch.
second multi-try performance of the year, 58 meters gained. He's going to finish off as the best back row player this season from a
Yeah,
fantasy sense.
yeah,
And even if he doesn't catch up Devon Rousseau, Jonah Moe, I will give Maddie his credit here. He's been on the Jonah train forever, and he is proving it here this season as well.
yeah.
Nola Gold, other players, Ed Fido. Good to see
You know
him
what? Good
kind of
game.
doing his thing. Haven't seen him since round 10. 98 meters gained for his highest of the year. Testimony Tongoiha, 12.9 fan 12.8 fantasy points for him with the try that he scored. But again, just not enough to lock it in there for the Nola Gold. I'll round out with Isaac Titamake.
Dude, he's been
Titamaki
solid.
did
Tamaki?
Tamaki.
Dude, he's been very solid.
Yeah. Outside
Fantasy
of the
wise?
3.4 he got last week, it just been again a guy that's just even keel for you. Even keel. Four tries in the last six matches for
Yeah,
you.
man.
He was Maddie's waiver wire pickup, I believe, last week as well. So again, a reason why you listen to the show because he would have done quite solid for you as well. All right, let's shift on over now to the Chicago Hounds Anthem Rugby Carolina matchup. Going into this one, it was just start your Chicago players. You're
Yep.
gonna have a good point production from that standpoint.
Yep.
Not as many fantasy points as you would expect from a game that was ended up going in favor, obviously, of the Chicago Hounds winning 33-19. When you have over 50 points scored, you expect fantasy points to be there, but no one surpassed the 20-point mark in this one. And it was led off the way by Mitch Wilson, who I believe in his first return since round 11 comes back here, obviously has kicking responsibilities, is able to get 15.7 fantasy points in this one with the try that he scored and 72 meters gain. We'll talk a little bit more about him in the waiver wire. McKeen Alican, another one of my starts of the week. I have been piggybacking this stat all year long, Vandy, and it's been the way that Chicago plays. Back row players, forward players are going to tally up the hit
Yep.
column in this one. Now, I will say he didn't get the tackles in this one, but he did score the try. So hedging my bet in a stat that ended up not working. Either way, McKeen Alican did score with that try as well for 14.7 for him. Outside that, not really any Anthem Rugby players. Corbin Smith, who is obviously signed recently, has his highest of the year at 9.6. But let's talk about Chicago. If you're streaming some guys, looking great. Noah Flesh, getting his first start since round 11, scores his highest of the year, 14.9 for the try, 33 meters gained, 12 tackles in the full 80 played. McLean Jones looks solid as well with the 11 tackles, 19 meters gained, the try scored. He had two now in the past two games. The guy I want to talk about is Peyton Wall. Peyton Wall,
Another big
since he
pickup.
has fantastic pickup. 57% owned now. We'll talk a little bit more about him in the waiver wire segment, but obviously majority owned. But double digit tackles or double digit points now in every match that he started. He's started now the past three for Chicago. He has now his highest meters gained at 117 meters. Doesn't even need to try to get into double digits. Three tackles. Peyton Wall looks fantastic. And if you were able to scoop him up, and there is still a chance that you'll be able to, again, we'll talk about more of him in the waiver wire. Peyton Wall again has been very, very solid for Chicago here the past few weeks. And then
How you
is anything
feeling
want
about the Hilsenbeck at 10, Tim Sweel at 15?
It's a good segue because that's exactly what. So Tim Sweel, Maddie's start of the week, obviously came in as the expectation for him to start the fly half position. He
Yeah.
was our guy that we drafted for the fantasy Ruckers team as our fly half. Obviously hasn't worked that way. Hilsenbeck has stepped into that role and has not let it go since Sweel got injured. But coming off of now 3 weeks where he has played at the fullback position and started there. He has his best of the year. Now, it was against Anthem at 10.1 fantasy points, and he loses that fly half eligibility, so that appeal now to start Tim Sweel is not there.
Yeah.
Again, the way that Chicago plays, not looking now without the fly half eligibility to not necessarily
I
start
agree.
Tim Sweel. But I will say, if you start him this week, you took advantage of it, and he played solid here. But now coming up, I believe they face
They play Houston on Wednesday.
Houston on Wednesday, NOLA on Saturday, and the following Wednesday is against Houston. I should clarify.
For sure.
Uh, I don't know if the appeal there will be for Tim Sweel, but nonetheless, got to give him a shout out there. Looks he
Yeah.
took the advantage of the situation against Anthem at 10.1 fantasy points. All right, let's get into now the last matchup of the weekend, the lone Sunday matchup: RFCLA versus the Miami Sharks.
Miami.
RFCLA getting back in the win column here now, back to back weeks, I believe. 26-20 win over the Sharks. This was a big one for RFCLA, who are hunting to keep that spot alive. And for a team that we thought that obviously they had a game in hand this week, we're on bye for the San Diego Legion. If you had told me when they were just rolling that they'd be now last in the Western Conference after 14 weeks of play and 3 weeks to go, I mean, crazy, crazy. RFCLA now in third, from first to last place in the Western Conference, Vandy. 7 points in the standings.
Crazy.
Like, it's as tight as it comes. And again, one team will be outside looking in when it comes to playoffs here in the Western Conference. I don't know who it's going to be, but RFCLA put a stamp on it in a big win, especially with Seattle beating Houston. I mean, RFCLA is at now 45 with that victory over the Miami Sharks. I will say any of these teams with two matches to go in the regular season can end up in first place, which is crazy
Yeah,
to think about. Like if
nuts.
it goes the right way, literally San Diego can make the jump all the way back up, I believe, if they kind of tally in everything that they can in terms of getting the win and the bonus point. And some favorable matchups that happen their way with Houston. It could go the other way, but RCLA can do the very same here, taking advantage against Miami. So that prediction I had as my favorite to win the championship, still there, which is nice to see. But let's sift on over, Vandy, to fantasy point performers in this one, and there were quite a few, and I'd like to see it. 18.4 for Andrew Coe, friend of the show, does great. He's aggressive, finds the lanes. This is a classic Andrew Coe performance. Maybe hasn't been as consistent as you'd liked of him this season, but when you do see him have this matchups, it's always great. Second highest of the year with 62 meters gained, a try scored, and four tackles plus two turnovers. One. Tim Anstey. Um, so you say you picked up Rufus McLean, right?
Yeah,
Or you picked up also Connor Buckley to play him this week.
yeah.
This was my Tim Anstey because Ben Houston has been MIA. Not sure if he's dealing with injury or not. And as soon as the lineup comes out and I didn't see Houston in the lineup, I'm like, all right, I guess I'll choose another LA guy. And Tim Anstey was the one that was available for me. And he did great. 26 meters gained, a try scored, 12 tackles. He has three tries in the past four matches. Tim Anstey has been pretty solid. And again, we're going to talk about more of him in the waiver wire. Rory Van Voot, 10.5, and Ben Sugars cashing in on a set beat try, 9.9. From the Miami side of things, not much. Thomas Beckerman, 13.4 fantasy points, the only double-digit fantasy point score in this one for the Miami Sharks. Tough one, tough one. And Miami's going to have a tough matchup coming up this week because I believe they play the San Diego Legion, who will be hella motivated to get back in that win
And
column.
coming off
So
a bye too,
and
resting.
coming off of a bye. So interesting enough there. But either way, yeah, handful of fantasy point performers there. Your team of the week includes Thomas Beckerman at the front row, second row Frank Lahore, back row Jed Melvin from the New England game. Your fly or scrum half is Zion Going, fly half Joel Hodgson, center Noah Flesh, back three Nolan Toma Taumo and Utah Warriors RCLA and the Chicago Hounds all tied for the best defensive set piece. Vandy, your team, your Utah Warriors, four of the team of the week honorees this week, which is pretty crazy.
Love
But
to see it, baby.
we move on to another week, finals week, round 16. It comes down to this. One of the most important waiver wires. So let's talk about it. What guys should you be looking out for here to pick up as potential league winners coming up here in finals week?
Waiver wire breakdown.
All right, waiver wire breakdown. Like I said, one of the most important ones. Vandy, before we get into it, I will say, like we've mentioned before, Houston on the technical bye this week, with them not having a matchup this weekend. Their next match is the following Wednesday when fantasy playoffs are over. So, for all intents and purposes, Houston players, gone for you. Drop them. If you need a roster spot, don't hold on to them. You're not in a dynasty league. You're not in a keeper league. You got to go all in. If you're playing for a chip, I know it's going to be feeling weird when you're dropping Davy Kutzer, you're dropping Tautela Tassi, or you're dropping Rufus McLean, who just comes off a big point performance. They're not here for you this week. So you got to find some other options going into that. I will say, Vandy, or I should ask, what is the mentality of the waiver wire heading into finals week? Whether it's fantasy football, fantasy MLR, how should you be approaching this in terms of guys that might be available and how you weigh a guy that maybe you've been trying to stick with all season long, been on the fence of you starting, maybe he burns you again. Like, for example, maybe you thought, hey, I saw Junior Goff in my line, but I know that's a guy that we've said that you can drop. But let's say I know we were in a situation where we almost had to start him, and he put up quite of a dud match this week as well. What's your philosophy here in this final week?
At the end of the day, if you made it this far, I guess you haven't had much of an allegiance to them anyways. It's time. It's bite the bullet type of weather. It's check a matchup. Maybe it's a guy you would sit there and go, I probably wouldn't start him. You got Anthem versus Utah. Well, it kills me to say it, we don't play the best defense. So you can look at that and be like, I wouldn't start an Anthem back three, in my finals. That's a viable start. That's a more viable start than sitting there praying for a guy who, yeah, I don't even have one off the top of the dome right now, but something like that. You don't sit there and play possum. You're in the finals. Get it done. I mean, Fab is nothing. Fab is useless now. It is. And you know
Yes.
what? This is greasy. This is greasy. But you can always check what your opponent needs. And if you have the Fab, ruin his day. Ruin his
Yeah,
day.
that's a great point.
Listen,
That's a great
friendships
point.
aren't made in finals, okay? You know what? They're there. They're there to torment, ruin their day. You can
Yeah.
see they got a guy, like you just said, Houston's on by. They were a Rufus McLean owner. You know they're targeting back three. They need a back
Mm-hmm.
three. You got more Fab, you take the next guy.
That's a great point. That's a great point. That's some 3D chess there. And those are the types of things that could win you a championship, right? Like you will be laughing.
Dirty.
Like you pick up, let's say, like to take that example, Vandy, like they had a Rufus McLean and they got to go pick up a back three player, and maybe a Peyton Wall is sitting on your bench, and maybe you don't need to start Peyton Wall, right? You
Yep.
have Devon Rousseau, or you have a Duncan Matthews that you're going to go with anyways. But hey, Peyton Wall sitting on your bench,
Might as
20
well.
fantasy points ain't going to be going to the guy that you're facing. So,
Exactly.
no, that's a great point there, Vandy. The couple pieces of advice that I have to kind of add to that, like you kind of mentioned, Fab is worth nothing after this week. Spend it in every shape or form, whether that's in Vandy's way in terms of ruining your opponent's matchup. If you need a guy, it's kind of the vice versa kind of tactic. Like if you want to make sure you pick up a guy that you want to start this week, it may seem ludicrous to put down if you have, let's say, $40 left in the bank, but you need a fly half or you need a center, like drop it. It's not going to carry over to next year. And I will say, have confidence in the guys that have got you to this point.
Yeah,
That's another
they
big
always
thing.
say you hear it quite often. It's start your studs. Start your studs, believe in them,
Don't.
even if it's a tough matchup. One you don't feel like going against New England. Play some stout defense. You play those guys. They got you here. You know what? You wouldn't be here without them. Play them.
Mhm. Now is not the time to get cheeky.
No, you
Don't
want to get cute.
overthink
You want
things.
to get cute, and then watch your waiver pickup get you 4 points.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what
So
cute gets you.
let's talk about in that case though, guys that you can pick up if you need them, right? Again, Houston on bye, guys like Pita Aeneas not available for you. Seth Smith, not available for you. Sam Tuifu, if he was to start, not available for you. Johan Mumson, Nathan Den Hout, any AJ Alatimu, if you were starting him, not available for you. Um, any of the wingers, like we mentioned, Rufus McLean, Don McKenna, um, any of those guys. They're not going to be around. So here are some of the options that you can have. We'll start with the front row position. For me, Ben Sugars. Ben Sugars of RFC LA. He's
Mhm.
been solid. Scores a try this past weekend. LA goes up against Old Glory DC. Going to be a tough battle there. I think that there's always the opportunity for that set piece to have a set piece try there. Ben Sugars is going to be the benefactor of that. I was looking through the list in terms of front row players that have that have hooker responsibilities that are under 50% owned. There's not many of them. Ben Sugars is the only one. So 43%, I think he's a nice little play for you with the upside that he could score a try against Old Glory DC. Outside of that, you're maybe trying to find guys that just rack up the tackle numbers or maybe are able to luckily score on a try, right? Like maybe you go with the Utah guy and maybe Aki Seuili is a play you have. He has tackle numbers, goes against Anthem. If he starts this week, maybe an opportunity there for him to get you some points. But again, the safe play is getting a guy that has hooker responsibilities, and Ben Sugars is the only guy that has that. Connor Robinson is another guy, but he's Anthem. I can't expect Anthem will be scoring too many set piece try against Liam Coltman and the Utah Warriors. If I had to choose between the two, Ben Sugars at 43% owned is not bad. All right, second row plays. I got two for you. Vili Hilu of the San Diego Legion, 61.7 fantasy points, 14% owned, coming off of a bye. Hilu has been pretty solid for fantasy managers. He has got you the full 80 minutes, and that's what I'm looking for a
Yeah.
second row player, just opportunity.
Yep.
And he goes against a weaker Miami Sharks team, or I guess you could argue that San Diego is just as weak at this point in time, but You can score points against Miami,
Yep.
and he hasn't scored lower than 5 fantasy points since round 11 at that second row position. Um, and maybe he cashes in a try to turn that into a double digit fantasy point performance. The big thing for me here, though, playing the full 80, the
Yeah.
chance of points is there. He got 6.9 this past week with the 15 tackles he had. I would be okay with Vili Hilu, and you know that they're going to put out that lineup, and you know this team's going to be motivated with them needing a win to stay within the Western Conference race, and I'm okay with that. That's a big play, right, Vandy? I mean, 80 minutes for a second row player. That just means that speaks opportunity to me.
That's what I'm looking for right now. You need a guy front row, second row, exactly. You need time on field.
Yeah. Chase Jones is the other guy I would say a little bit less owned, 0% owned. He has had at least 4 fantasy points the past 2 weeks. The only reason why I bring him up, I would 100% rather Vili Hilu over
Hmm.
Chase Jones. But Chase Jones and the NOLA Gold going up against Chicago, there's a chance for him to get a lot of hits. He comes off a week where he got 10 tackles. Maybe he has a nice floor for you if Vili Hilu's taken. A nice backup option if Vili Hilu is not available for you. All right. Back row. I gotta say him. We mentioned him earlier, Tim Anstey. I mean, Tim Anstey has been great. He's scoring tries. There always is the risk involved. I think Anstey, for me, is a guy that has a high ceiling at that back row position, can get you around the 13-point mark, but there is a chance where he gets subbed out at 60 minutes. He's ride the hot hand right now. 3 tries in the past 4 matches. He's had double-digit tackles in that same time frame, 3 of the past 4 matches as well. Tim Anstey, 43% owned. I like it. And I would be confident in him. The other option is the lesser owned option, Jimmy Hokafanu. San Diego has been riding with Hokafanu, which is surprising. And I thought it would taper towards the tail end of this year, but it hasn't. I know that they're dealing with injury. I know Poitevin is, I believe, out. Hokafanu, I wouldn't expect much, but I would expect consistency. He's going to get you around 6 to 8 fantasy points. He plays 70 to 80 minutes every single time, gets you double digit tackles. For me, Tim Anstey is the higher ceiling guy. Hokafanu might be the safer play guy. And it often comes down to roster construction with that. If you have a lot of floor guys, maybe you need an Anstey to slot in your lineup to put that in there. If you're lost to Sam Tuifu, who is your high ceiling guy that's not playing this week, Anstey might be the right play there. But if you need a guy that's just going to get you 5 points, if you've been going with Johan Mumps in there, Hokafanu could do just as that. Scrum half position, I'm going to go with one of your Utah boys, Vandy, and this is purely speculation. I have a feeling that we might see some of these lineup changes. I wouldn't necessarily put Fab on this guy because it might end up being a waste. But I mean, if you have a lot of Fab, why not at this point? But I have a feeling that Logan Crowley is due for a start at some point. Zion Going, I know, has been playing very, very well. But I looked at kind of the numbers in terms of the rotation, and it just seems like it's due time for Logan Crowley to get in there. He hasn't started since round 12. He's come off the bench 3 weeks in a row against Anthem. The writing might be in the stars that, hey, let's throw Crowley in there, give Zion Going a rest. And if that's the case, any 9 against Anthem is going to be solid.
Yeah.
I will mention Ismail Safodian. I feel like we mention him every week. Even if he's coming off the bench and you need a 9, he's a guy that's just athletic and has the ability to score the try zone. And we know that Utah's defense is not necessarily the best each and every week. So hey, you might have
And don't break, baby.
bend don't break. Fly half, another position that is very, very, very sparse. I would have said Tim Sweel this week, but he loses his fly half eligibility. I'm waiting on lineups to come out on this
Yeah.
one. For the one that I'm looking at, again, you're not finding many fly halves that are available. There are plenty of fly halves that don't kick. Maybe a Martin Elias, those guys that just it's hard to have a fly half that's not kicking. So I'm keeping my eye out on who starts in NOLA. Luke Hardy, 43% owned. Dorian Jones, 0% owned. Look at who goes there. If you have the space and you really need a fly half, and so that's the only, like, I would dump 2 of the guys on my bench that I know that I'm not starting, right? To just lock in a fly half position, right? And then
Yep.
you can pivot afterwards as depth it goes.
Yep.
But if you're dealing with the Davy Kutzer situation where you don't know if he's going to play, maybe Joel Hodgson doesn't start this week. With maybe you're a little bit concerned because of Anthem.
Who
That would
says
not be
that?
good. Um,
We're
Luke
tied for
Hardy, Dorian
first, man.
Jones.
We need this win.
Luke Carty, Dorian Jones, is a play that I would maybe invest in.
You and your, I don't know, your sources, man. First it's Davy Coates, and now you tell me Joel ain't gonna play.
No, I'm not saying I'm just saying there we have
We're
seen
gonna
some
find your sources.
we have seen some subpar lineups go against Anthem. But you're right. You're right. You guys do need the win. You guys do need
And
the win.
we've
You guys
talked
take
about it.
first
The
place.
West is not clinched.
Yeah, it's true. The other one, if we move on to center position, I'm going to go with another Utah guy, Cole Simu. Again, this is the Anthem play. 0% owned. We saw what Noah Flesh was able to do this past
Yeah.
week against the Anthem in the spot start. Cole Simu could be that guy for you. And if you have a Domakina, a Talatasi, this might be a guy that it's a risk it for the biscuit play. He
Yeah.
hasn't scored higher than 7.2 this year. The past 3 weeks, 6.4, 2.3, 5.9. But against Anthem, you're banking on a try. Cole Simu could be that guy for you guys because I would figure with Leo Ela getting the time off, he comes back in the lineup this week, and Cole Simu is going to be at that 13 right beside it. All right, back three position. This for me is about construction. Okay, the top back three player for me is Mitch Wilson to pick up. He's back in the starting lineup, looked well. Obviously, a
Against
lot of those
Utah.
points coming from the boot. I would prefer other options if you have a known kicker that you're going, if you have a Hilsenbeck, if you have a why am I blank? If you have a Dan Hollinshead, if you have um any of these guys that you know have the kicking
I got one for
responsibilities,
you.
yeah.
What would you rather have Mitch Wilson as your kicker or either NOLA guy?
So like you're basically saying,
Dorian
what
Jones or Mitch Wilson? Dorian Jones is playing. Would you slot Mitch Wilson? Like,
I would go Dorian Jones. And do you know why? Because it's the guy that I can put in my back flex spot.
true.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's Dorian. So it would be Mitch Wilson and Martin Elias, or Mitch
Yeah,
Wilson and Joel Hodgson when he's not kicking. You know what I mean? Like that those are the pairs that I'm looking for, right? But if I know that Dorian Jones is going to be kicking in a game that might actually be a kicking battle against a defensive Chicago Hounds team, like if that's going to allow me to play an Andrew Coe or
true.
a Balikana on my back three spot and not have to waste one on Mitch Wilson, I think I would lean towards that way. There are very few. Maybe the one perfect mix is a Joel Hodgson start when he's not kicking plus Mitch Wilson. Like that's like the perfect play because then you have the kicking responsibilities covered. But if we're talking about like a Martin Elias and Mitch Wilson versus Dorian Jones and Andrew Coe, like I would go Dorian Jones, Andrew Coe every
Yeah, that's
single
a good
time
point.
there. So again, this is if you're in a situation where you don't have any kicking responsibilities. Like we had to go in our fantasy Ruckers League, Vandy, like Cameron Gerlach and Shane O'Leary.
Yeah,
Like that's rough. Like I would go Cameron Gerlach and Mitch Wilson. But I would go Dorian Jones. If I can pick up Dorian Jones and
yeah,
have not have to start Cameron Gerlach, I think I'm going that route over
that's
the
fair.
advantages of Mitch Wilson having. The guys that you look out for though on the back three, if you have your kicking responsibilities covered, we talked about him, Peyton Wall. He's been great ever since he started starting. Now he is 57% owned, so he's owned in a majority of leagues, but check your waiver wire, see if he's available. Peyton Wall is a good one. I will say Nolan Taumohioloa. We got to go in 0% owned. He comes off a 25-point week. He could start against Anthem. That's pretty spicy. That's
Yeah, it all
pretty
depends what
spicy.
happens with trainer here.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll see where that goes because it was Nick Ben again who went into that fullback position.
Yeah.
Nolan's there, so we'll see whether or not Trainer is available and go from there. We have been preaching. It has been the meta all season long to not start a defensive set piece and have that extra bench spot. You don't need bench spots anymore. You're
Nope.
playing your best 10 in this lineup this week, so you're playing a. You need all the points you can get. So you're playing a defensive set piece. For me this week. I think this is the easiest play if you don't have one already. San Diego Legion at 29% owned against the Miami Sharks. Their set piece has been incredible. They seem to score a whole bunch of tries when it comes to their set piece plays. You got that tandem of Hugh Roach and Shiloh Klein, who is our front row scorer of the year right now. But the past three matches, or the past five matches, they've scored at least 2 points. Two out of the past three matches, it's been 7, 9, and 2. So, I mean, that's a pretty good play that you can pick up off of the waiver wire. So,
Sure.
yeah, again, Houston on bye. You need a streamer. These are some of the options you can get. But remember that advice though that Vandy and I said to you at the top, because it's all going to come into play this week. And you're going to be looking back at the decisions you made here on Wednesday for the waiver wire at whether or not you had a championship come Sunday. So either way, going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. All right. With that being said, hey, there's a weekend of matches that's going to dictate who is going to come out with that chip this week. I want my name on this jersey so bad. And I know Vandy wants to get his first championship win under his belt. That's going to happen with the 5 matches that we have coming up this weekend.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, week 16 Rucking Rundown, the finals for Fantasy MLR. Here we go. It all comes down to this. It all comes down to this. Vandy, there you go. Vandy, you've been killing it on the predictions, though. I think, unless something is to go terribly wrong with your picks, I think you have this one in the bag. You're 46, 30, and 1. You went 4 and 2 this past week. We actually all went 4 and 2 this past week. 39, 37, and 1. 36, 40, and 1 for Maddie. So I'm in second. Maddie's in third. So we'll see how that continues this week. Houston again on bye. We start off on Friday. Miami taking on San Diego. I'm skeptical about my Miami fantasy pieces. I'm doing my best to try to stay away from those. Of course, I'm going to start Manuel Ardeo, but he's probably the only one that I'm really looking at this one that I'm confident here from Miami players.
Did you
San
play
Diego,
Benji Bonasso?
he's been solid.
Solid
Solid.
back row. You know what? I would.
If I would not be picking up a waiver wire guy in place of him, but if I have other options there that I could play, like a Lucas Rumble, a what's another
Corey
one?
Daniel or Benjamin Bonasso.
Like a close one. That's tough.
Would you pick up Semi?
I don't want. I do not want my season to be dictated by what is probably the biggest bust of the fantasy year.
And I made it to the finals taking him first.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, kudos to you, man. That speaks noise to what you can do on this waiver wire. But like that's tough. Like it depends what you need. Benjamin Bonasso, I think, will be consistent. If you need a ceiling play, like I may start Tim Anstey, want to stim Tim Anstey over Benjamin Bonasso.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like that's close. That is
Yeah.
close. But San Diego, though, I'm pretty confident in a lot of their pieces here this week. They're motivated. They're going in. It's good. It's going to feel good to not have to start Cameron Gerlach, and we can put Lincoln McClutchy back in. That's gonna be pretty solid there. But either way, Vandy, prediction for this one. I am going San Diego in this one, if you couldn't tell already.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Legion.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to talk much about this matchup, but the next matchup is on Friday, right after the 7:30 p.m. Eastern match. And maybe your boy Louis here can help you out on this one as he makes his weekly appearance here on this show. If you're listening on the pod, Louis, what's up, buddy?
Yeah.
Your dad is going to need your help on this one because the
Yeah,
Utah Warriors are
right.
taking on the Anthem Rugby Carolina. Do you see the jersey that your dad's wearing? You see that? That's your favorite team.
Yeah,
You're
the
buying
winner
into that. You're in the Utah family. So can I get a go Utah from you, Louis?
Louis,
What?
look right here and say go Utah.
Oh, Utah.
There you go. Utah Warriors locked in. Locked in right there. Does that do it for you, Vandy?
Way to throw
Is
some
that,
passion into it, eh, Louis? Go
is that
Utah.
the official baptism of the Vanderpool family into the Utah Warriors fandom group?
That's right. Here, give me a hug. He's messing with my table here. It's an adjustable table. He's gonna raise it on me.
Either way, Vandy, I think you could probably guess what I'm saying here is
Yeah, Utah.
start all your Utah guys in this one. You're very lucky that you get to face me with a whole bunch of Utah guys. The only skepticism I have is watch out for maybe a weird lineup that does come out. Either way, though, whatever
You are
lineup that does come
praying for
out,
this weird lineup. You are begging for it at this
I
point.
am trying to speak it into existence. You can tell, can't you? Either way, Utah is going to take this one. I can imagine Maddie's probably going to say Utah as well. All right. Start our matches on Saturday. Old Glory DC takes on RFC Los Angeles at 6 p.m.
This
This
was
one's going to
kind
be
of
an
tough,
interesting one.
man.
This one is tough because Old Glory DC again's been hot. What I say, they've won their last 4 matches, 5 matches in a row. RFCLA, they've been getting hotter too. This is a must win for RFCLA. It would be interesting though if DC with the clinch spot maybe rest some guys, possibly, not too sure. But again, you have a shot. DC has a shot at winning, getting into first place still.
Yeah.
And they can take on RFCLA here and get that. But again, RFCLA is playing for their playoff lives with how close Western Conference is. I'm fine with. I think it's going to be a competitive match. I like all my fantasy assets in this one. I'm going to pick LA though. I picked them to win the championship. I would have to go them here this one.
Damn. I think give me OGDC.
All right, DC for Vandy. DC for Vandy. All right, next matchup. 1 hour later on Saturday, Chicago, NOLA Gold, Chicago at home. I'm completely out on NOLA now. It's just they don't get it done when you need them to get it done most. And outside of Jonah Moe, if you have to start one of their fly halves, I guess. Tamaki has been okay for you,
Would you
but
run Fido? I know he's been hurt a lot lately. He had a decent performance 10. Would you play him here? Or you think that OGDC?
give me another
Or
option.
sorry, you think Chicago just
Give me another option, like Fido or
Fido or
like I think I would start Peyton Wall over Fido.
that's fair.
Does that speak volumes? I think I would speak.
Peyton Wall over Fido? Yeah, that's fair.
I think I would start if Nolan is starting against Anthem. I would start Nolan over Ed Fido.
Thomas Aoake.
Fido. I'd go Fido over Awake. Awake has not been good this year so far, or at least in this stretch that he's been in.
Yeah, the last two has been tough, but he's
Yeah.
decent before that.
Yeah. So, but that, I mean, yeah, that's a great, like, people will have that option, right? Like Peyton Wall or Ed Fido. Like, it's the name value
Super
versus the guy that's
Coates,
been
you give him
hot.
a go or no shot?
I don't like it because of the way Chicago plays, right? Possession
Yeah.
ball, physical. I don't know how much kicking is going to be happening in this one and how many opportunity Coates is going to get. Either way, though, I will say Chicago in this one for me at home.
Yeah, I'm going Chicago.
All right. Then we round out the week. Lone Sunday matchup, a
This could be a good one.
2024 championship rematch.
This could be a
Free
good one.
Jacks, Seawolves. Seawolves been hot. Free Jacks have dropped a couple. Free Jacks are sitting first in the East. Seawolves in a heat of a playoff battle.
Yep.
This one will be fun, and I'm happy with my fantasy assets in this one as well. But from a winning sense, I'm gonna go with the hot hand. I'm gonna get interesting here. I had a tough time picking this one, but I think I'm gonna go Seattle in this one. Make it spicy.
I was kind of thinking Seattle too. I think they needed a little bit more. Free Jacks lineup.
They've been looking good. Like Seattle has really looked good to me.
Yeah, it's hard to deny that. And I mean, just coming off a big win over Houston, they
I mean, it
beat
wasn't
the
pretty.
week
Wasn't the
before,
prettiest of wins, but they got it done, and they have looked pretty
beat
past couple
us.
weeks.
I think you might be right, buddy.
All right.
Yep.
Danny's going Seattle. All right. The only difference there, the Old Glory DC LA matchup. So we'll see what Maddie has to say, but Vandy and I basically on the same page. Nonetheless, some spicy and tasty matchups, I gotta say, for a final fantasy MLR week, which should be very, very exciting. All right, let's wrap up the show here by talking a little bit of cash.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, here is the TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp betting made easy. Check out the link down below. Get in on some new user free bets. and help support the show as well. Nice little link that curates all the available sports books that are available in your state or province or territory, if you leave in one of those as well. And again, bets have been varying widely when it comes to where they are available, the lines that come out on sports books everywhere. I always see every single week it changes from time to time. So hey, there may be a sports book that is available in your area that you don't even know about that you can cash in on, get some new user bets to get some free bets to start taking advantage of those opportunities and books that are available that you didn't even know about. Vanny, we talked about it at the start of the show. You were running away with this one. Some couple tough weeks for you, which has allowed me to close the gap. I think
Half
what?
a
I think
point. I would have been up 60, bud. Half a point.
back to back weeks now. That $10 bet has not looked great for you, but I will say bad beat in this one. That parlay bet you had of the Miami spread,
They cover. Who was it?
they covered. Yeah, Miami covered.
Seattle.
Um,
No,
uh,
OG, Miami, and then I had Utah.
OG covered, and then Utah. Just not getting that half a point for you to cash out on that parlay bet.
And
For
I
me,
think
though,
you even texted me after and said the line switched to 2.5.
it did.
Yeah, and that's the killer right there.
Yeah, yeah, tough, 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 tough. Yeah, bad, bad beat. For me, cashed in on the Old Glory DC spread,
Yeah.
but didn't hit on the Utah line. I got the 3.5 as well on the early one. So only $3 win for me. So in the net benefits though, $70 on the season for you, Vandy, but I'm at almost $50. And the big one I will say was the RFCLA bet that I put last week
Yeah.
that took some cojones. I won $20 last week. I'm
Yeah.
going all in on RFCLA. So don't have Maddie for his lines this week, but I will leave this short and sweet. Ones that I am looking out for.
I'm looking at
San
that
Diego,
San Diego.
Miami San Diego game. I'm interested to see what the line comes out on that because there is a world where San Diego is underdogs in that one. And if that's the case, I might want to go in on that, which would be
If it
interesting.
was the same spread that they had this week against LA, I think it was what, 8.5?
What
Yeah,
between Miami? A six for
six and a
Miami. I
half.
believe it was
They
6.5.
just covered.
Yeah. So interesting there. I will say I'm interested to see who is favored in the Free Jack Seattle Seawolves matchup. New England.
I'm also keeping an eye on OGDZ versus LA. You know what? I think that one too could be a little spicy. I think that line could be nice. And I think they actually all are gonna have good lines. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think this will be a good week for betting.
All right, so we should see there again. You can find those bets and props at the link down below at sportsbooks available in your area. Brought to you by Betstamp. We've had a lot of fun partnering with them to get our users and listeners some nice deals when it comes to those sports books that are available. And again, keep an eye out. The ones I like: Free Jack Seattle Seawolves. See where that line lays. Sharks Legion. See where that is at, and then DC LA. I'm staying away now from every matchup that includes Anthem RC. I just never know what that line is going to be and how that is going to be covered there
16
with
and a
that.
half, you take the cover.
Mm.
18 and a half.
No, and the only reason why I say that is because to cover for Anthem to cover
Yeah.
18 and a half, I'd start to think about it. I think even 16, anything more than two tries, I'm going to start to think about it. It has to be more than 15, I think.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
So we'll see from there. All right.
You know what? It all depends on what I think you might be right. It all depends on what lineup we put out.
Yeah. So we will see at there. But again, on top of the bets, finals week. It all comes down to this weekend. Who's going to be crowned champion? Who's going to get their name etched in the Fantasy Ruckers OG League jersey? It's coming down to Fitzy, or does the Fantasy Ruckers get their name on it for the first time? Vandy going for his first championship, taking on the Supreme Commissioner. And for all of you out there who are playing for your first championship, hey, good luck out there. It's going to be a fun wrap to the season. Vandy, anything you have left for the people?
No, nice to be here. I hope to see you guys next week. If I don't win, I think I might have the same flu that Matt got. I feel it coming. You know what? we'll leave that at that. Peace and love, and good luck. Good luck in your playoffs, and listen to us. Maybe you'll win it.
That speech just made me even more confident to win this week. All right, for Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy
I don't get
Vanderpool,
sick, baby.
I am Ryan Yee. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Ruckers Show.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.